Hello everyone, welcome to Native Mobile Bits. In today's video, we are going to introduce Jetpack Compose with asynchronous programming. Now if you are an experienced Android developer or if you are just starting out, I'm sure you have heard this term asynchronous programming. Okay, and if we are going to make beautiful Android applications one way or another, we need asynchronous programming. Now I'm sure that most of you will have this question. Why actually I should learn asynchronous programming? Cannot I make beautiful Android application without it? I know about row composable, column composables and so many other Jetpack Compose concepts. I can make applications. But no, Jetpack Compose is just a UI toolkit. We need so many things to make a scalable Android application, and asynchronous programming is one of the main important thing when we talk about building a scalable Android application. So one of the main goal of Native Mobile Bits is I am trying to show you what you are going to do at your actual Android application development job at your workplace. You are going to do a lot of things together. You are not going to just code about Jetpack Compose for one sprint and then after one sprint you are going to move to backend task and then next week you are going to move to implement database inside your applications. No, this is not going to work like that. You need to do a lot of things together at the same time you are going to implement one feature, right? So suppose you are starting out your Android career and you have given one feature to implement, right? So you will do a lot of things together. You will implement your UI part, then you will implement some API calls, and then you will fetch the data from the server, then you will implement some kind of architecture for your feature. Let's say you are trying to implement MVVM. So you will implement some remote data source which will help you to get data from server, and then suppose if you are having some requirements to store that in your local DB, you will implement database also at the same time. So in all of these concepts you will need asynchronous programming. This is the common thing. If you are trying to do anything, you will need asynchronous programming when you are trying to make your Android application. Now what is the reason? Like I am keep on telling you will need asynchronous programming, but why I will need it, right? If you are making a API call, you are just getting the data from the server, you are just showing inside your list view, right? Why we should need asynchronous programming inside this? Now let me tell you the answer. So the answer to all of the questions about asynchronous programming is you want to give one beautiful user experience to your application's user. You don't want to show any lag inside your applications to your user. Now, if you have seen some applications where you feel like application is freezing, why this application is freezing in the first place? So Android applications has one very important concept which is called main UI thread. So whatever you see on your device, on your mobile screen, that screen renders with frames. So these frames update your UI at a certain amount of time. Let's say at 16 millisecond. So every 16 millisecond, let's say your UI is updating, your frames are rendering your screen, right? Now let's say you are doing a lot of heavy work on your main thread. Heavy work means like you are trying to write something inside your database, you are trying to fetch n number of data from your server, and you started doing that on your application main thread. Then your frames will have to wait, right? There is something else going on your screen, like you are downloading something or you are doing something, right? Somehow your frames stopped rendering on your screen. Then you will feel some frames are dropped and you will feel your application is lagging, your application is freezing, and user will feel that this application is hanging. This is the common terminology. They will feel this app hangs a lot. I don't like it. This app is hanging all the times. If I am trying to logging in and then after logging in you suddenly started fetching tons of data for your user profile, right? So your user will feel like your application's frames are dropping if you don't implement this with asynchronous programming. So asynchronous programming means your operating system will have so many hands and they will be doing n number of things. With one hand they will be fetching data from server, with another hand they will be updating that to some UI thread, right? So all of these things if happening together, your applications will be smooth. And that is the main thing we want inside our applications. We want our applications to be smooth as butter. They should not hang, there should not be any lagging. If users want to interact with any feature inside your application, that feature should be seamless. It should be clean as butter and there should not be any lagging and any frame dropping. Now you must be thinking why these frame drops in the first place, right? So your application is having a limited number of memory allocated to you. Android OS allocates the memory. Let's say when you installed your application, Android OS gave you 10 MB memory for your application. Now let's say your application is updating some UI and all, everything is fine, but suddenly you started doing some heavy operations on your application, right? So some memory resources are allocated. Let's say you created some variables, some context or something. Some variables you created. You create some variables in your program, right? Where x equal to some data or something like that. You created n number of variables. Then these variables take some memory inside Android phone, Android devices, right? So whatever the Android OS allocated memory you have, that memory if somehow exceeded, you will get out of memory exception. But Android OS is very clever and very friendly as well. Android OS will always try to save you from this error, which is out of memory. Android OS will try to, help you so that you don't get this error. How Android OS will help you? Android OS has one tool which is called garbage collector. So garbage collector runs frequently to clean up the non-used memory. If you are having 10 variables, you are not using any of them now. So garbage collector will come and try to delete all of those objects from memory. And it will free your memory so that you can reallocate some variable inside that memory. Garbage collector main duty is just check if you are not using any memory, just delete those things and give you that fresh memory so that you can use it again. Now you must be thinking I have garbage collector. It will delete the old memory and it will give me to use it as new memory. Then I will never run out of memory exception and my application will be smooth because I have so much memory, right? But no, whenever garbage collector is running, your application is not running. Think it like that. If your garbage collector is doing some work like deleting something and giving you as a fresh memory, at that time your application frame will not render. Then also you will feel some kind of lagging. So you need to reduce this process also. Like you need to reduce your garbage collector should not run all the time. Otherwise, you will start feeling like your application is lagging. Now you must be having so many doubts. First, why I should use asynchronous programming? So I told you that your applications try to update its frame on UI so that you can feel your application is running smoothly. Then I told you that you cannot do any heavy work in between, like you cannot fetch data from the server, right? If you try to do that, garbage collector will try to run again and again. And when garbage collector will run, your application frames will drop. Again, you will run into a condition where you will feel your application is hanging. It is kind of a deadlock, right? You cannot make a heavy API call, you cannot do some heavy operations, you want to do all of those things, but if you do, your application UI is freezing, right? Obviously, inside your application, you will try to do all of those things. You will try to do some, if you have some photo editor application, you will try to play with bitmaps if you're trying to fetch some data from the server. Obviously, in all of the applications, you will have some kind of work which will try to freeze your application UI if you don't use asynchronous programming. In any application, you try to do anything. You want to make your users happy, right? Your application should run fast, like it should not lag, it should not hang. Now, if you try to make your application fast and if you don't want to give any bad experience to your user, you will need asynchronous programming. If you want to do some heavy work, you can tell asynchronous programming that, hey, my users are having this screen, but I need you to do this work, and then when you are done with this, give me the result I will show to the user. These things can only be done with asynchronous programming. But if we try to implement our application with asynchronous programming, there will be less memory leaks. Memory leaks means if you are trying to use some memory at some time, but later on you forgot, like I created n number of variables, now I am not using those n variables, but still those variables are using some memory. These are memory leaks, right? But if there are some memory leaks, then garbage collector will also run. Then your UI will again freeze. So now how to get rid of this flow, right? I don't want to leak any memory. I don't want to leave any unwanted memory resources. I don't want my garbage collector to run again and again so fast. So if you don't have any memory leaks, your garbage collector will not run again and again. Now how you cannot have any memory leaks? If you release the unwanted resources at time. And asynchronous programming will help you in that as well. Okay, so now I hope you got some answers to your question that why we need asynchronous programming in the first place. Now we have multiple options. We can use any of those things to implement asynchronous programming. But now I am sure that you must be familiar. If someone asks you why you need asynchronous programming, you can tell them that I want my applications to run smoothly. So they will tell you then why you need asynchronous programming. You can just run your application smoothly. So you can tell them that there is something called garbage collector, and if I try to do some heavy operations, garbage collector will awake. So garbage collector is some kind of robot inspector. Okay, you can think it like one AI inspector. If you do some crime inside your application, it will know. For sure it will know, and then it will give you some penalty, and that penalty will be kind of your application freezed. And these crimes are, if you try to do some heavy operation on your application UI thread, garbage collector will know. Okay, this is the AI inspector. It knows everything about your application, what you are doing, when you are doing, and if you are doing something wrong, like you are doing some heavy operation on your UI thread which is allowing your application to freeze, and eventually it can take you to a point where you start getting ANR, application not responding, or you are getting out of memory exception. Garbage collector role is to help you to prevent these things. Garbage collector will start dumping the memory, and when your memory is dumping, your application is not running. Again you will feel some kind of lag. So to help you in this process, we have RxJava, we have coroutines, and so many things, so that your main thread is running smoothly, and if you are doing some heavy work, you can delegate that to some background thread. Threading is very important, and if you are coming into Android application development, and if you have a good understanding of threading, you will be one very good Android application developer. And that is going to be our goal, to learn and understand threading deeply, to understand asynchronous programming deeply, and how we can utilize this, not just to make one normal API call. We can do a lot of things with this, and let me show you how you can enhance your application's experience with asynchronous programming. We will use Jetpack Compose to make our application UI. But we are not going to make dummy UI applications. We are going to make fully functional applications, right? So we need some kind of APIs, some kind of database related things. So for that, we will also use asynchronous programming. So from now on, I will tell you how to use asynchronous programming using Jetpack Compose. We will make Jetpack Compose application, but inside our apps, we will use asynchronous programming as well. Okay, so I hope you know the answer now, why your applications are slow, or why some of the applications you are using are slow and some are running smoothly. You know the difference. If you are using some application which is running slowly, feeling some freeze, getting you some ANRs, and getting some out of memory exceptions all the time, so there is something bad with their main UI thread, like either they are not using asynchronous programming properly or something else, which is eventually helping their AI inspector to give you one penalty, and that penalty is your application is slow, your application is freezing. So if you want to keep your AI inspector, garbage collector happy and your application should not get any penalty, so we can use asynchronous programming, and I will show you how we can use asynchronous programming in our future videos where we build beautiful Jetpack Compose applications. Okay, and so this video is kind of a new thing which we are going to do at our channel. When we try to implement something, I will tell you why we need it. So I will explain you like why we need it. Like, so that's it for today's video, friends. I hope you are enjoying the content we are having at Native Mobile Bits. And if you are enjoying the content at Native Mobile Bits, please share it with your friends who are learning Android or who want to learn Android. It's not limited to any topic. We will learn everything about Android. Okay, at Native Mobile Bits, we will learn everything you can think of in order to build a beautiful Android application. At that note, let's end this video. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video.